So he's an associate professor and investigator at the Universitat de Girona in Catalonia. I think some of you now know who I'm talking about. He's, besides of that, he's being a research expert on the inclusion of migrants and refugee population, and he's also a practitioner running his own program in his region within also the university. So please welcome Oscar Prieto Flores. Are you hearing us well? Oh, you don't see us?
Hi, everyone.
Can you put it here?
Nice to meet you. Nice to see you.
Yes.
So, great.
Do we have insurance if we kick off the laptop or?
Should I start?
Yeah,
Right now?
please go ahead.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank you. The floor is
Hi,
yours.
everyone. Good morning. It's a real pleasure to be with you today. And it's difficult to talk with you about academic research after Cyrilo's presentation. But I think he embodies what mentoring is, and it connects with some of the things that I want to explain and I want to talk with you. So I'm not able to be with you. I would like to be with you today, but I have teaching obligations and I have to be here. So what I'm going to present today is about linking formal to informal mentoring. So there is a need for a debate and research agenda, I think, in order to go beyond individual outcomes and especially to link mentoring to social networks and to social inclusion. So what I'm going to talk is about my experience in about research in the last 15 years, working with mentoring, doing research with mentoring, in trying to foster social inclusion of migrants and refugees. So to put you in context, I think we are living in a society that is going more and more polarized. We have a lot of polarization in our society, thinking about refugee inclusion and so on. And we are living in a world in which the spirit of the 1951 Refugee Convention is being eroded by some states, creating some specific mechanisms or technologies of the externalization of the refugee protection. For example, the United Kingdom or Denmark, these states have approved in the parliaments some agreements and resolutions to externalize refugee asylum seeking to other countries, to third countries. So these laws are considering the deportation of asylum seekers in UK or Danish territories. So including those fleeing for war in Ukraine. So we are very worried about the situation that is taking place in building up walls, externalization of borders, and rejection of people fleeing from war and from inequality, global inequality. And we have evidence from the budgets of some governments. This is forced Frontex, which is the agency of border security in Europe, and the funds of this institution has grown steadily in the last years. But on the other side, we have a good side of the story, a more humane side of the story. We have people, we have social movements, we have civic organizations that are mobilized to include migrants and refugees in our societies, to welcome people in our societies. And some regional governments and local governments are also providing local responses. And mentoring is one of the instruments that are seen as impactful, that can be complementary to formal support in our institutions in providing social inclusion of the newcomers of recent, not only of refugees, those who flee war, but also from other recently arrived migrants from other contexts, economic labor migrants. So in the last year, we have experienced a growth in the mentoring programs, not only in Spain. This is a graph from Spain, but we can see the growth of mentoring programs across Europe, throughout Europe, and in many countries, especially after the so-called migrant crisis in 2015. And one of the drivers of these mentoring practices is the flourishing of mentoring practices is the inclusion of the recently arrived. So what we have been experiencing and working in the last 15 years is to explore the features, the characteristics of the emerging mentoring programs, and especially trying to see how these mentoring programs targeting different migrant population or an asylum seeker population can be effective and can have impact on the inclusion, on the social inclusion of the newcomers. So what I want to share with you is that in Europe, the discussion in the last 10 years has been, and especially in the last 5 years, has been around how to build quality mentoring, how to build effective mentoring, because there is a discussion, as we saw yesterday with Samuel McKillin. He raised the thing that mentoring can harm, and that's really important. So it's good and it's necessary to build a minimum standard of quality for mentoring relationships, to build mentoring relationships. No? So effective mentoring or quality mentoring are needed, of course, of these elements of effective practice, but we need more, as we heard yesterday. We need more because effective mentoring practices are talking about minimum organization, that mentors should have training, that it should be supervision, and all these things. But as Sam talked us yesterday, we have been also in our research in Girona and Spain and Europe, we have seen the need for seeing what are mentors doing, what are they expected to do, and what they are doing at the end, no? And this is really, really important. And this is why we need targeted mentoring programs with clear aims, not only just the friendship model is good, but combining friendship model with some specific targets on social inclusion. And we see that there are higher effects. This is in Berlin. Some of you were in that meeting in the last in-person European Mentoring Summit, and Jean remember us that it was important for mentoring programs to have very target goals, no? And the activities and the practices that mentorings are carrying out on the ground should be connected directly or indirectly with those goals. But besides that, I think that besides the effective elements for mentoring programs, it is and well-defined target group and strategies. It is also relevant for us, as I'm a sociologist, you know. It is also important to see how mentoring programs are related to establish some further supports going beyond the mentor, because the mentoring relationship lasts maybe 6 months, lasts maybe 1 year or even more. But what happens when the mentor goes? What happens when the mentor disappears? So I think it's really important to have a reflection on this, on how mentoring organizations, mentoring practices, mentoring programs can build some of the kind of system in which everything is not relied on just only on the individual, on the mentoring relationship, on the diet, but that goes beyond the diet. And this is really important. And I'm going to share with you some of the reflections of qualitative research that we have been doing. I think qualitative research is very informative to these issues, and I'm going to show you some examples for the discussion. So what is important for me is that mentoring programs can reflect on how to teach and how to train mentors, or how mentees can develop the skills to learn how to navigate to the system, to the new system, new society that they are embedded, and connect to others that they may become natural mentors. Connecting others that can be gatekeepers, that can provide them support in order to access to some resources like housing, labor market, for example, like education and so on. And I like to, as I was Cirilo was saying, I like to be in the giant on the shoulders of the giants. And there is a giant in academics, in the sociology of education, the field that has inspired me and others as scholars to reflect on how formal mentoring programs can cultivate relationships beyond the diet. And we can think about social networks. We can think about the system in which mentoring programs are embedded in. So, and this is really, really important. And for illuminating and for thinking about these dynamics, Ricardo Stanton Salazar provides us with some conceptual elements that are really necessary to apply on the practice. So he talks about institutional agents. So he talks about social capital, and he refers to institutional agents as an individual who occupies one or more hierarchical positions of a relatively high status, either within a society or in an institution or an organization. Let's say, for example, a teacher that has a position in the school, for example. Let's say someone who is in a firm, in a company, that can open the access to the labor market to some people. Let's say to someone who is in the housing market, owner who wants to rent her apartment. So how do we connect mentoring to these institutional agents, to these gatekeepers? And I think this is a reflection which is really important in the field. And I'm going to show you some examples on that. But besides institutional agent, I think it is really important to have another concept, which is the role of mentors as bridging agents. So how mentors can provide, or how mentoring organizations and programs can provide this bridging between the mentee and these institutional agents. And it is very clear in the Nightingale program, or in all the mentoring programs with children and adolescents. This is a community-based mentoring program. And in some cases, these mentors have had this role of bridging agents, in order to provide connections with these institutional agents that have supported mentees beyond the mentoring relationship. And this is the case, for example, of Whipping. She is in the university right now, but she was saying this about the relationship she had with her mentor. I was like a blind person because I didn't recognize anything, and like a deaf person because I didn't understand the language when she arrived to Catalonia from China. It was so different. It was really hard. I had a terrible time the first 2 years. I had many conversations with my mentor, and we walked around the city a lot. But what helped me the most was her advice, because I really didn't know what to do in the future. She asked me what I would like to do, and I told her that I really like children. And she said to me, you can study early childhood education. And she explained to me how things work to get into college. I finished intermediate vocational training, and now I'm starting advanced level training, and maybe I'll make it into the university. She really gave me a lot of motivation, telling me you can do it. Motivation is good, but this is not enough. Sorry. Yeah. Okay, perfect. Sure. Thank you. And motivation is not enough. So you need to connect this motivation to institutional agents, no? And the mentor from Whipping, she had a very good relationship with one of the teachers in the high school, and that provided natural mentoring to Whipping. Whipping is in the university right now. This interview is from a study we conducted 4 years ago, and she's in the university right now. But she's in the university not only because of the mentor. Of course, the mentor helped a lot, but I think this mentoring embedded in that system helped it to link her formal mentoring to natural mentoring, because the teacher at the school and high school listened and supported Weeping in connection to what her mentor did. And this is also the case, another example is the case of Constantine. And he was talking because this is part of a longitudinal qualitative study, told us that I was in the F class and they put me in the A. This kind of tracking and streaming in high school, secondary high school in Catalonia. The A class was calm. They were real studios, and the atmosphere was very easy. In the F, since there were only Muslims and foreigners, and things were very complicated, and also participated in that. As you can see, there's institutional racism in education, and he said, if I had stayed in that class, I would have taken bread and pastry baking, and my grade point average wouldn't have gone up, and I wouldn't have gone to computer science where I'm now. It was an important decision. At first, I thought it was a bad idea, but eventually I realized it wasn't. Later, in difficult moments, when I had to study hard, I had 3 people in mind. Prieto, his mentor, who reminded me that if I persisted, I could do it. My teacher, who told me that if I had made it this far, I could pass all the courses. And my mother, who said that if I didn't pass, I wouldn't have any future. So what it is not here in this quote is the role of support that Prieto, his mentor, provided him, and the connection with Prieto with his teacher, Constantine's teacher. So I think here there's a clear image with these 2 quotes on how mentoring can be embedded in these systems of care, let's say, and how it can promote this kind of social inclusion. And for example, in adult mentoring, when asylum seekers come to the new context, mentors can be bridging agents in providing them support, contacting them with owners to rent their apartments, for example, and many other issues. So I think it's important to reflect, and this is my conclusion, on how mentoring programs can go beyond the diet, can go beyond just the person, and can be embedded in the systems of social inclusion. And thank you so much for this.
Thank you very much, Oscar. Thank you. I don't know if we can remove the computer. Yeah. Thank you very much for saying this important idea, which is how can we build an ecosystem that is aware and that allows the positive impacts of mentoring to last and to be perpetrated. So how can we build this ecosystem, creating bridges between schools, between the grocery shop, between the justice department, between families, and how can we make sure that this whole ecosystem builds this, foster at least this systemic change that we all wish we have with mentoring. Thank you very much, Oscar. We don't have much time for questions, but I think that we have your email address that you shared, so we can write you
Yes.
if needed. Thank you very much.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.